Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me put the Wi-Fi on TikTok. How's it going, everyone? Welcome. I hope everyone's excited for a nice Monday night game. Huge implications, playoff implications in the Browns-Ravens game tonight. Good afternoon, Dylan, JC, Trixon. Good to see you. Matthew Brooks, yo, how's it going, man? How was week 14 for everybody? Did we make it to round 2 of the playoffs? What do we need to happen tonight? Akers or Amari Cooper, week 14? Probably Cam Akers. Don't think you can get wrong with Cam Akers at this point. Yes, I do think Lamar Jackson is going to do very well tonight. Just like I said, last time Lamar Jackson was on our primetime televisions, I think Lamar Jackson's going over 25 fantasy points yet again. If you're watching live on YouTube right now, hit that like button. Really do appreciate that. You're down by 0.4 with Chubb. Yeah, you can definitely call that a game. Of course you made it. Yeah, of course you made it if you traded for Derrick Henry, like we all should have done at all cost in the regular season of the fantasy football playoffs, because Derrick Henry, as we've been saying, has one of the easiest playoff schedules we've seen of all time. I mean, he gets the Jaguars, and it doesn't end there, guys. He's got 2 fantastic matchups remaining in the fantasy football playoffs. Derrick Henry is going to absolutely dominate for people in the playoffs. I'd like Mark Andrews over Tonyan moving forward. I think Mark Andrews is going to have a good game in his return from the COVID list tonight. Luca, thank you. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, oh my God, Miles Sanders. How about Miles Sanders, who absolutely crushes us in week 13? If Miles Sanders did what he did in week 14, in week 13, I literally would have won over $10,000 on DraftKings in multiple tournaments. And of course, he waits until he's up against one of the historically best running defenses of all time for Miles Sanders to have his breakout game. Absolutely ridiculous. I do think J.K. Dobbins can have a good night tonight. Aaron Jones, huge letdown this week. I was pretty surprised by the Aaron Jones letdown. He was a must start given his matchup. He scored 40 points against the Lions in the first time he played them, yet he really struggled this week against the Lions, really not moving the needle for people in the fantasy playoffs. Aaron Jones against the Detroit Lions team that was allowing the most fantasy points per game to running backs this season gets under 10 fantasy points, 15 carries, only 69 yards. Ravens defense down by 8.5. It's going to be a close one. I do think Lamar Jackson's going over 25 fantasy points tonight, guys. And if you are counting on Hollywood Brown, I'm not quite sure how you got into the fantasy playoffs in the first place, because counting on Hollywood Brown has been a losing strategy all season long. I don't think you can count on Hollywood Brown tonight either. Can you trust Miles Sanders now? I do think Miles Sanders has clearly established he has a higher ceiling now with Jalen Hurts playing. So yeah, you can start him. Of course, it depends who you are starting him over. Kev here. Who wins this trade? Give up A.J. Brown and Gibson, receive Gallman and Diggs. Definitely the person getting A.J. Brown is winning that trade. A.J. Brown is an absolute beast, guys. I mean, there's been very few players that have been a better return on investment this season than A.J. Brown. He's been dominating for our player props as well. We identified him as an exploitable player prop this week. They set his line at 59. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, Jake, we got to talk about this Phillip Lindsay player prop. I checked the stats. Phillip Lindsay, late in the fourth quarter, Phillip Lindsay gets his 10th carry. We said if he got more than 9, every single running back that had at least 9 carries against the Carolina Panthers went over 30 rushing yards. And then we see Phillip Lindsay gets his 10th carry. He gets to 28 rushing yards. The over-under was 27. And then he gets his 11th carry for -5 yards. He gets tackled the second he touches the ball, and he ends with 23 rushing yards. Absolutely brutal beat. One of the worst beats I've ever had. And if you're watching live on YouTube, guys, appreciate it. Hit that like button. Takes you 2 seconds. Helps us out a ton. Really do appreciate it if you hit that like button. Holden, I'm glad I gave you the advice to get King Henry. I was yelling at everybody to go get Derrick Henry. He has one of the easiest playoff schedules I have seen in my lifetime. What 3 players impressed you the most this week? I think Jalen Hurts was extremely impressive in that victory this week. I mean, it was one of our bold predictions that Jalen Hurts would lead the Eagles to a win over the Saints. I did not expect it to happen by any means, though. I thought it was more likely than people were chalking it up. I really wanted the New England Patriots to draft Jalen Hurts. That did not happen. Hurts is clearly a little bit better than public thought heading into that game, and he was one of the most impressive performances of the week. You got to be impressed with Derrick Henry going for 125 rushing yards in the first half. He cleared his prop. I was talking about on our stream leading up to Sunday, the over-under, if you wanted to bet on Derrick Henry's rushing yards this week, was 120 yards, and he beat that mark in the first half. That is absolutely incredible. I mean, just insane, the efficiency that he's been able to have. Your opponent has Chubb. You're up by 24.7. You're certainly not safe, man. You are not safe. It is not over. If you're up against or still have Nick Chubb, the range of outcomes for Nick Chubb, his 90th percentile outcome is 35 fantasy points. So if you're within 35 and you still got Nick Chubb going tonight, your game is by no means over. And again, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button, guys. We passed 2,000 YouTube subscribers this weekend. Very exciting, big accomplishment for us. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, you got to subscribe. These are the players I think are going to do best tonight, guys. I think Lamar Jackson's got to be in your captain slot if you're playing DFS on DraftKings. I think any prop on Lamar Jackson's probably a pretty good return on investment tonight. He's going to be continuing his league-winning march that is started last week. He went for 29.5 fantasy points in most leagues last week, and I think he's going to continue that trend this week and for the rest of the fantasy football playoffs. I think Mark Andrews is going to have a fantastic return to football today. I also think Nick Chubb is going to go over 20 fantasy points. Nick Chubb, to me, is the number 1 running back in the NFL. He has been an absolute efficiency monster. There has not been a single running back that has been more efficient than Nick Chubb. He's averaging the most yards per touch in the NFL, the most yards after contact in the NFL. The craziest thing about this Cleveland Browns team is that the teams they're going up against know they're going to run the ball, and they still cannot stop Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, specifically Nick Chubb. He's running against stacked boxes the most in the NFL, and it does not matter. He's getting the most yards per carry against stacked boxes in the NFL. You can't stop Nick Chubb no matter what you do. Nick Chubb, to me, is the number 1 talented running back in the NFL right now, and I'm saying that all well knowing how good Derrick Henry is. That's how good Nick Chubb is. I do not think J.K. Dobbins is going to have that good of a night tonight. He's probably the player I'm most concerned about. J.K. Dobbins, by the way, I was telling people start Cam Akers over J.K. Dobbins on Thursday night. You should have taken that advice. J.K. Dobbins is competing for rushing attempts with both Gus Edwards, Mark Ingram, not just those two, though, but also Lamar Jackson. There's a chance that J.K. Dobbins gets under 8 fantasy points tonight. Very realistic. You're sleeping on Frank Gore. I'm not sleeping on Frank Gore. Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer, but he's also not a guy who should be getting more than 10 touches in today's NFL. Gaskin out next week. Any waiver wire running backs for week 15? Yes, go get Lynn Bowden, guys. Lynn Bowden had led the Dolphins in receiving. Devontae Parker picked up an injury. Jakeem Grant picked up an injury late in that game. Lynn Bowden could lead the Dolphins in receiving in your running back slot. He's a great ad, and you can always get access to my free transaction advice in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store. I do think James Robinson, he had that big run at the end of the game that really boosted his fantasy day, but he struggled most of the game along with the entire Jaguars team. I still think he's a volume-based running back 1, though. Miles Sanders absolutely crushed us. Last week. You almost had to bench him this week. And if you didn't bench Miles Sanders, that is very good for you against the Saints team that up until this week had one of the best rushing defenses of all time. Sports betting. Yes, Nick, I do kind of like the Browns +3 tonight. Our probability gives them a 49% chance to win this game. +3 is pretty good. I think this is a complete toss-up of a game. I actually do like the Ravens to win. But given the points, I think the Browns are the best value play given the spread. There is supposed to be some weather impact tonight, but it is under our 25-mile-an-hour wind threshold. Based on the research I have done, there's only a statistically significant impact on passing attacks, on offenses, when there's wind over 25 miles an hour. And so that is why I am not worried about the weather tonight. Yo, what's up, Sam? How's your day going? Ravi, my day's going fantastic. Thanks for asking. Yes, Cam Akers is in RB1, as is Jonathan Taylor, both of whom you should have started over J.K. Dobbins this week. What happened to Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones was just not able to crack any big plays. That was the biggest thing with him this week. He relies on cracking a couple big plays. Weatherman Sam, yeah, Ben, I'm pretty disappointed that I have still gotten no reach outs from any weather news stations for the audition that I did back in week 12. Should I be worried about Deontay Johnson's drop and usage? No, drops are one of the least sticky stats in the NFL. They're complete noise. You can't worry about drops. They're one of the most overrated stats in the NFL. So don't worry about Deontay Johnson. He's going to be just fine. Debo out for season. What does that mean for Ayuk? Even if Debo Samuel wasn't out for the season, Ayuk is a wide receiver 1, guys, and you had to start Ayuk this week. He's now gone over 75 yards in 4 straight games. Ayuk is also seeing a 30% target share. That's with the likes of a guy like Devontae Adams and a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. That is the level that Ayuk is playing at, and that's the type of volume he has seen. He's now over 75 receiving yards in 4 straight games. He's seen at least 7 targets in 4 straight games. Brandon Ayuk, guys, solid wide receiver 1 in fantasy football for the rest of the season. When you played Akers and Taylor, that's got to be a good feeling. I do think Mark Andrews has a chance to go over 20 fantasy points tonight. I do think Lamar Jackson has a chance to go over 30 fantasy points tonight. I think the same thing of Nick Chubb. He also has a chance to go over 30 fantasy points tonight. I think Lamar Jackson's got a good chance to go over 65 rushing yards. He is a beast on the ground. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens need to win this game. If they do not win this game, they are under a 40% chance to make the playoffs. If they win this game, they're over a 75% chance to make the playoffs. This game is huge for the Baltimore Ravens, even bigger than it is for the Cleveland Browns, who, if the Browns win this game, they clinched a playoff spot. They are in the playoffs. This is it for them. If they win this game, they are in the playoffs. Cleveland Browns, if you want to be in the playoffs, you got one win. You just got to win one game. This is the game. So the Cleveland Browns, they got a lot on the line tonight too, though even if they lose, they still have an 80% chance to get into the playoffs. They're almost definitely going to be making the playoffs. Again, I do like Lamar Jackson a lot tonight. A.J. Brown, yeah, he's absolutely unstoppable. I do like Mark Andrews. I really do think Nick Chubb, regardless of matchup, regardless of how many defenders the Baltimore Ravens put in the box tonight, Nick Chubb is going to feast. Hollywood Brown probably not going to get you what you need him to get, guys. Hollywood Brown has been disappointing you all season. It's been a losing strategy all year round to count on Marquise Brown. He's one of the biggest busts of the season. And it's honestly pretty surprising you're in the fantasy playoffs if you need Marquise Brown to do something for you tonight. It's a losing strategy, guys. I don't like Marquise Brown tonight. I'm glad you took my advice, Nick, to start Jonathan Taylor this week, because Jonathan Taylor was an absolute smash play, and he's going to be a league winner. He also absolutely cashed for us in DFS this week. What a beast. Guys, that 66-yard run, that's the Jonathan Taylor we thought he could be coming out of Wisconsin. That was what we saw. Hope you had a good day, Sam. Premium and YouTube subscriber here. Thanks, man. Is Hurts in QB1 status with 100 yards against New Orleans over Murray? Yeah. Jalen Hurts is in the QB1 conversation, guys. 100 rushing yards from a quarterback cannot be ignored in fantasy football. It gives him an extremely high floor and ceiling in fantasy football. It's even more impressive when you add the context of doing that against a New Orleans Saints defense that, coming into that game, was one of the best run defenses in the history of the NFL. Not just this season, in the history of the NFL. There have been very, very few run games that succeeded against that defense this year. So yes, I think Jalen Hurts is in the QB1 conversation. And yes, it does raise Miles Sanders' floor and ceiling. And yes, we said you shouldn't overreact to DeAndre Hopkins' matchup heading into that game because guess what? It's DeAndre Hopkins. He's a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. It's him, it's Devontae Adams, and it is Tyreek Hill. Those are the top 3. Saints have not allowed a 100-yard game in 58 games. Air with that stat. Yeah, that is an absolutely insane stat. They had not allowed a 100-yard game in 58 games. And I think the last person to do it was like LaMichael Pirine or Samaje Pirine or something like that, which is also pretty ridiculous stat. And it was a few years ago. Down 23 and you have Lamar and Ravens defense. Yes, you're going to win that game, even if he has Kareem Hunt, Tyler, because Lamar Jackson is going to absolutely ball out for you in this game. Lamar Jackson needs to perform for your fantasy team. You drafted him in the first 3 rounds, and if he doesn't perform, you're just not going to have a chance at the championship. I do think Lamar Jackson has league-winning upside, and in Dylan, we're getting Ayuk or Chris Godwin questions now, and that's the level that Brandon Ayuk has ascended to, guys. I would probably be playing Brandon Ayuk than Chris Godwin. And I think that Tom Brady should be fined. He should face legal fines for turning Chris Godwin into a wide receiver 3 in fantasy football. How did he manage to do that? Absolutely ridiculous from you, Tom Brady, because Chris Godwin is one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL, and he's basically been a wide receiver 3 in fantasy football this season and of late. T.Y. or Marvin Jones? Yeah, T.Y. Hilton, guys. One of the biggest busts of the season 3 weeks ago. He's actually top 5 in fantasy points at the wide receiver position over the last 3 weeks. I mean, he came out of absolutely nowhere. And yeah, T.Y. Hilton's been balling out. You got to consider him in your starting lineup if you were able to pick him up. We did tell you in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store, completely free to download and completely free to get waiver wire and transaction advice. We told you to add T.Y. Hilton 3 weeks ago. He is start worthy now, guys. Could Lamar drop 30? Yes, Connor. He can drop 30 points. I think he's going to drop 30 points. It's not going to be surprising to me when Lamar Jackson puts your fantasy team on his back and he absolutely carries you to a fantasy football championship. Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts rest of season? I would probably go with Jalen Hurts. Hey, Sam, who are your top wide receivers in your opinion? Great question. We actually made a YouTube video on exactly that. We also made a YouTube video on our top 10 running backs. You can go check out our YouTube channel. We just passed 2,000 YouTube subscribers. We're actually live on YouTube right now alongside TikTok. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button so we can help show this stream to a few more people. Really do appreciate when you guys hit that like button. Let's see if we can get over 50 likes in the next few minutes. I have Chubb. He has Lamar. Do I even have a chance? You're up by 3. Yeah, you absolutely have a chance. But I think that Lamar Jackson is going to be the highest fantasy scorer in tonight's game. If I were to rank the fantasy options in tonight's game, it would be Lamar Jackson number 1, Nick Chubb number 2, and probably Mark Andrews number 3. Best prop picks for tonight. We do have one prop pick identified by Walter. Walter really likes the touchdown upside for one player tonight. You can get access to that. Exploitable player prop pick in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store. Start your 3-day free trial for the premium subscription to get access to all of Walter's player prop picks based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. He's had 67% accuracy on over 200 prop picks dating back to the beginning of last season. One of those was Cam Akers on Thursday night, which hit in the first drive. There was also A.J. Brown this week, which hit in the first half. I mean, you can't go wrong with a lot of these props. Phillip Lindsay over 27 rushing yards was a brutal beat, by the way. I'm in the playoffs. Good stuff, CB Fishing. I'm glad that you are on track to winning both of your leagues. That's what I'm talking about, man. I answer questions, Johnny, on both TikTok and YouTube. I'm managing both chats at once. I do think that the YouTube chat, though, is a little less spammy, so that is kind of a perk of going on to YouTube. We do have moderators in the YouTube chat. Thoughts on Jonathan Taylor? Also, you should make a podcast. We're thinking about making a podcast. It is a lot of work, though, so we'll see about that. But I do think that Jonathan Taylor is going to be a league-winning running back for your fantasy football team. He was an absolute obvious buy low about a month ago, given his playoff schedule, as was David Montgomery, as was King Derrick Henry. And it's funny, in that video we posted about them being league winners, I see a lot of people commenting, yeah, but the guys who have those players aren't in the fantasy playoffs. And that's exactly the point. That is why we traded for those players. We didn't draft them. We traded for them. We were intelligent fantasy managers looking ahead at the fantasy football playoffs. That's why we traded for Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, and Jonathan Taylor. They were all obvious buy lows. What tight end should I get for the playoffs? Gabe, look no further than Cole Kmet, who has taken over the starting tight end role for the Chicago Bears. He's a great sleeper option. He's seen more targets than Jimmy Graham in 3 straight games, playing over 80% of the snaps for them now. I'm up 23. He's got Chubb and Ravens D. You have Ravens D. No, you're not safe, guys. If you're going against Nick Chubb, if you're going against Lamar Jackson, or if you're going against Mark Andrews tonight, you are not safe. You are not safe. I don't care how much you're winning by. You are not safe. The 90th percentile range of outcomes for those players. And again, fantasy football is a game about range of outcomes. There's a low, you got to think about the floor for a player, the ceiling for a player. The ceiling for Lamar Jackson is over 40 fantasy points. The ceiling for Nick Chubb is over 35 fantasy points. The ceiling for Mark Andrews is over 25 fantasy points. So none of these guys are in safe range if you're going up against them. Ravens defense and Browns defense also have a pretty wide range of outcomes. There's a lot still to be happening. I need a big week this week. Good luck, Nick. I'm wishing you guys all luck in your Monday night. What you need for your fantasy football playoffs. You need 27 from Mark Andrews. It is possible. Do you believe in miracles? Alex Smith out for good. Yeah, it looked tough. Alex Smith on the sideline did not look good. Miles Sanders is a running back too for the rest of the season, by the way, guys, with Jalen Hurts playing. Again, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, we're posting weekly content on YouTube because it's what the people want. We're over 2,000 YouTube subscribers in under 1 month. Hurts over Herbert. Yeah, guys, Justin Herbert did not really have the bounce back game that we were expecting out of him against an Atlanta Falcons secondary that is improved, but still not all that scary. They've allowed top 10 fantasy points to quarterbacks per game this season, yet Justin Herbert puts in a performance under 20 fantasy points. Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson both kind of let us down in week 14, and it leaves the offensive rookie of the year still up for debate. I think that Justin Jefferson deserves it, though. I'm tied. He is Nick Chubb with Nick Chubb, and he is Browns defense. Yeah, I would definitely like your odds there, guys. Nick Chubb and Lamar Jackson are fantastic options. Will Gibson play next week? Antonio Gibson, Christian McCaffrey, Julio Jones. All of these guys are up in the air for next week. I don't think Julio Jones is going to play. My guess would be they shut him down for the season. It seems like Christian McCaffrey is trending towards playing next week. I like Cole Kmet a little bit more than Logan Thomas. I do think that Antonio Gibson has a pretty good shot to suit up, given that the Washington football team, sitting atop first place in the NFC East, they have to rush their players back, given their situation right now. So it's not going to surprise me if we see Antonio Gibson get the start, even though we're not sure he's going to be back from injury. Is there a streaming quarterback? And Antonio Gibson. Yeah, I do think that Jalen Hurts is a fantastic QB streamer, guys, for the rest of the season. He had probably the hardest possible matchup he could have had, given his rushing capabilities against the New Orleans Saints this week. Over 100 rushing yards cannot be overlooked. He's a great streaming option for the rest of the season. Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson combined with Mark Andrews are going over 40 fantasy points together tonight. I think Lamar Jackson's going to go over 25 points. Not going to surprise me at all if Lamar Jackson goes over 30 fantasy points, guys. Again, if I'm ranking the players tonight in terms of fantasy football output, I like Lamar Jackson the most. Then it's Nick Chubb. Then to me at number 3 is Mark Andrews. I think all 3 of those guys are going to do very, very well. And CMC Nolly, yeah, I do think Lamar Jackson's going to outscore pretty much everyone tonight by 16 fantasy points. If you've got Lamar Jackson in your close game, in a close game, I think you can feel pretty good about your matchup. The Cleveland Browns have allowed top 10 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this season. Andrew's wondering, why can't Austin Eckler score a touchdown? Don't blame Austin Eckler. Blame Anthony Lynn, who is trying. He's trying his hardest to undercoach Adam Gase, like Anthony Lynn clearly wants to be ranked number 1 in something. He's fighting for the number 1 worst coach in the NFL. Adam Gase still obviously takes the cake. 3 points this week, absolutely abysmal against a bad Seahawks secondary, allowing the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. Rashad Perriman, Jamison Elite Crowder, Braxton Berrios, all under 10 fantasy points. Absolutely brutal. Adam Gase, absolutely brutal. I don't know why they are still allowing you to coach a football team. But Anthony Lynn is one of the big reasons for Austin Eckler's struggles in the touchdown column. He has Chubb, Andrews, and he has Tucker. You're up by 40. Nope, I don't think you're going to win that one, man. Akers, Monty, Jacobs, or Sanders rest of the season. I would probably rank them as Akers number 1, Montgomery number 2, Sanders number 3. Jacobs probably coming in at number 4. Yeah, they are coaching to get Trevor Lawrence, but do you actually think Adam Gase is that intelligent? I don't think so. And I think that if Adam Gase is the coach for Trevor Lawrence, he's going to ruin Trevor Lawrence too. There's so many issues with that Jets team, it's hard to even get into it. Cole Kmet or Logan Thomas? Cole Kmet or Logan Thomas? I like Cole Kmet a little bit more than Logan Thomas. I think Kmet, guys, is a very good sleeper moving forward. Monty, Sanders, or Jacobs? Johnny, I'd probably go with those first 2. I do think Kareem Hunt, guys. Kareem Hunt is one of those players that has an extremely wide range of outcomes every single week because he is such a talented player. He just sees not enough volume for him to be very trustworthy on a week-to-week basis. But Kareem Hunt has the potential for 2+ touchdowns and over 100 yards every single game. I like the Browns +3 a little bit more than the Ravens -3. I actually do think the Ravens are going to win this game, but I think we have them at like a 51% probability to win the game. So I like the Browns +3. Yes, Andrew, I do remember you stressing about Perriman or Antonio Brown. Again, if I'm ranking the fantasy options tonight, it's Lamar Jackson number 1. He absolutely has the most ceiling tonight. I think Lamar Jackson's going over 25 fantasy points tonight. This is a must-win game for the Baltimore Ravens, more so than the Cleveland Browns. I don't think you can ignore the must-win scenario for the Baltimore Ravens tonight. If the Baltimore Ravens win, they have over an 80% chance of the playoffs. If they lose, under a 40% chance. That's a huge, huge swing. If the Browns win tonight, they're in the playoffs, locked in. If they lose, they still have about an 80% chance to make the playoffs. Thoughts on Tom Brady rest of the season? He has a great schedule. But yeah, he did not inspire confidence whatsoever this week, Ben. And it was particularly concerning because they were coming off of a bye week. This is where Tom Brady usually thrives. It's hard to get behind Tom Brady and that Bucs offense right now. They have a lot to figure out, and we really have not seen them get better as the season goes on. They've stayed about the same, Ben. So he's a risky option moving forward. I would consider Jalen Hurts over him. Yeah, Wayne, it's going to be exciting to see the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs. And here was my bold Super Bowl prediction back in week 1. And every single week, I only bet on player prop bets because I've had a positive ROI betting on player props. We've had 67% accuracy using artificial intelligence and machine learning to identify exploitable player prop picks since the beginning of last season. For example, we dominated with Cam Akers on Thursday night, who cleared his prop over under 45 yards. He cleared that on the first drive. And we do have one prop tonight. I'm expecting that one to hit in the first half. But I also bet on a couple futures every single season for fun. One of them that I bet on this season was the Jets under 7 wins. That was an absolute lock. The other one that I bet on was the Cleveland Browns to make it to the Super Bowl. Not win the Super Bowl, make it to the Super Bowl. And here was my logic with that one. Given what we've gone through in this year of 2020, would there be a more poetic ending to this year that when we're celebrating New Year's Eve and we're heading into the week of the Super Bowl, is it going to be that surprising that the year of 2020 is the year that the Cleveland Browns make it to the Super Bowl? It's just too poetic of an ending to the year of 2020. And that was my logic there. And it looks like they have a legit shot now. They're going to be in the playoffs. I need 12 from Jarvis. Yeah, I do think he's going to get that in PPR leagues. Jarvis Landry has been hot of late. He's the clear number 1 option for Baker Mayfield. Who is your wide receiver 1, QB 1, running back 1? Well, we just posted videos about my favorite running backs and wide receivers on YouTube. Go check those out if you haven't checked those out yet. But my running back 1 right now in fantasy, if he comes back, it's Derrick Henry. It's Derrick Henry. But if he comes back, Christian McCaffrey is in the conversation as well. He's probably going to come in as running back too, though. Derrick Henry, we knew he was going to win fantasy football championships. Wide receiver 1 absolutely has to be Devontae Adams. And quarterback 1, you got to go with Patrick Mahomes. Hey, Sam, what's up? Who wins this trade? A.J. Brown and James Robinson for Eckler and Diggs. I would probably lean towards the Eckler and Diggs side of that. Let's go. Caught the dub in all my leagues. That's what I'm talking about. Heading on to round 2 of the fantasy football playoffs. You can't bench Stephon Diggs, guys. He's just too good. Do I trust Gesicki? Colton, good to see you. Do I trust Gesicki rest of season? I have Ingram too. Yeah, you can trust Gesicki, especially with the injuries at the receiver position for the Miami Dolphins. Gesicki's a tight end 1 for the rest of the season, guys. Devontae Parker looked pretty banged up. We see Jakeem Grant also injured late in that game. James Robinson cannot be benched. He cannot be benched, guys. And again, I do like the Browns +3 tonight. I think it's going to be a very close game. But my favorite player tonight in terms of fantasy football is Lamar Jackson. And if you're playing on DraftKings tonight, you got to have Lamar Jackson in your lineup. And you got to stack him with Mark Andrews because Mark Andrews, guys, has very, very high upside. My bet for MVP is Patrick Mahomes. But the only other player in the conversation right now is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers very much is still in the MVP conversation. It's going to be close. Gesicki arm broke. Is that true? Gesicki's arm is broken? And no, you can't trust Gesicki the rest of the way. Another injury, another reason to go add Lynn Bowden, if that is the case. Gesicki did get banged up at the end of the game this week as well. So that isn't going to be too surprising of news. Gesicki is out. So another reason to be going adding Lynn Bowden. Mike Gesicki is out probably for the rest of the season. T.Y. Hilton or Swift, I would probably lean towards Swift there, though Hilton has been absolutely balling out. Herbert is very tough to trust at this point after a pretty lackluster game against the Atlanta Falcons. That whole team just looks very flustered with Anthony Lynn not helping anything. Cam Akers against Jets or Lockett. You can't bench Cam Akers at this point, guys. Cam Akers is seeing way, way too much work to not be in your starting lineup. Yes, you can definitely trust David Montgomery. I would be trusting David Montgomery over Josh Jacobs in this upcoming week. Thoughts on Chase Claypool? He's really seen a decline in his productivity over the last 3 weeks. James Washington, 2 straight games with a touchdown. He's taking away Chase Claypool's work. He's really eating into Chase Claypool's role. Corey Davis, he had a down week. I'm expecting him to bounce back. I asked you this on TikTok, but start Aaron Jones or A.J. Brown, premium sub. Ryan, I would be starting A.J. Brown over Aaron Jones at this point. Could Chubb get 37 points? Yes, Nick Chubb could get 37 points. So could Lamar Jackson. Both of these guys have such a high upside in this game tonight, guys. And again, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get to 50 likes. Would really appreciate that. Takes you 2 seconds. Helps us out probably more than you realize. Is it time to start Samuel over Terry? No, I don't think it's time to bench Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin is going to bounce back. I do think he's going to bounce back. And guys, if you're watching live on TikTok right now and you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, you got to go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We passed 2,000 YouTube subscribers yesterday in under 1 month of having a YouTube channel. We're posting weekly content on there. We're going to be coming out with a video this week to help you dominate on DraftKings and FanDuel. If your fantasy season is over, it's okay. You can still go play fantasy football on DraftKings and FanDuel. You can even make back the money you lost playing fantasy football. I do think that Mark Andrews and Kareem Hunt can combine for 36. Mark Andrews has enough upside tonight to come back. He can stage a comeback for a lot of fantasy teams tonight. I'm betting on Mark Andrews, guys. I think Mark Andrews is going to have a fantastic game back after being out for a couple of weeks on the COVID list. Yeah, Chase Claypool getting distracted, making too many TikToks. I think the TikTok fam might have gotten to Chase Claypool. Guys, we're 1 like away from 50 likes. Who's going to be our 50th like on YouTube? Deontay Johnson, Justin Jefferson, or Cooper Kupp next week? I would probably go with those first 2 guys. Corey Davis or Ayuk? It's got to be Ayuk at this point, guys. Ayuk is a solid wide receiver 1. And now Corey Davis, he had his second game under 10 fantasy points this week. Only a second game all season under 10 fantasy points. Pretty disappointing for Corey Davis. He only had 4.4 points, three catches for 34 yards. Not what you were hoping for from Corey Davis. Can you trust Aaron Jones? Not as much as you would want to be trusting your first round pick in fantasy football. Aaron Jones has elite upside, but we've seen his floor at this point. His floor is a lot lower than you were hoping for. His floor is about 8 fantasy points. I need Lamar to outscore Hunt by 20. It is very possible that Lamar Jackson is a league-winning fantasy football player. He has a great chance to go over 25 fantasy points tonight. I like Cole Kmet over Jared Cook. Unless Drew Brees is returning, you got to go Kmet over Cook. Cole Kmet, guys, he has been an ad for us for a couple of weeks now. He has the number 1 tight end role for the Bears. Don't be fooled. I know Jimmy Graham scored a touchdown this week, but that's pretty much all he has done. There is nothing wrong with Terry McLaurin, by the way. He's just on an awful offense with no quarterback. I mean, there's the only wide receiver that has had to deal with worse quarterback play in their career than Terry McLaurin is Allen Robinson, who Allen Robinson is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, hands down. He the best quarterback he's ever played with, arguably, is Blake Bortles, and he has still produced wide receiver 1 numbers for your fantasy football team. You're up 20 with Chubb, he's Lamar Jackson, and Hunt. I think, Nicholas, you're going to win that one. Nick Chubb has a similar ceiling to Lamar Jackson tonight. There's nothing people can do to stop Nick Chubb, guys. Nick Chubb is on an absolute tear recently, as is Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry has back-to-back games with 10-plus targets. He's had back-to-back games over 60 receiving yards, back-to-back games with 8 catches and a touchdown. Jarvis Landry looking to continue his strong streak today. He's gotten over 20 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks now. There is a good chance Jarvis Landry keeps his streak going, even against a tough Baltimore Ravens secondary. Dobbins over under 50 rushing yards. To me, J.K. Dobbins is extremely risky tonight. I don't trust him very much. I think that J.K. Dobbins could struggle to be a consistent fantasy football asset, competing with Gus Edwards, Mark Ingram, and don't forget Lamar Jackson. 4 rushing attempts is not a good thing for J.K. Dobbins, and for that reason, I'm going under 50 rushing yards for J.K. Dobbins tonight. Akers, Gallman, or Ronald Jones? Absolutely, it's Cam Akers, guys. Cam Akers, RB1 in fantasy football now. Fantasy questions. Who should I start at flex? Sanders, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, Curtis Samuel. I would probably lean towards DJ Moore in that situation, but Miles Sanders absolutely needs to be considered at this point, given his upside with Jalen Hurts in the lineup. It absolutely raises his ceiling and his floor now that Jalen Hurts is in the lineup. And I will be entering one DraftKings lineup tonight. I'll speak through it with everyone. Is it possible to book you for private analysis of my team and league next season? Nate, that is not possible because I have a limited amount of time, though you can download the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store, and you will get all of the information you could possibly need. All of the information you could possibly need to dominate your fantasy leagues. And it's not too late to go subscribe in the WalterPicks app because we're giving you profitable player prop picks and DraftKings and FanDuel advice every single week. The vast majority of premium subscribers in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store have paid for their subscription 10 times over by the time that the season is over. To me, Lamar Jackson has way too much ceiling to not be playing him on DraftKings tonight. He's going in my flex. He's going in my captain spot. You got to stack him with Mark Andrews. I think that if you're going with Lamar Jackson, it's also a pretty good idea to be stacking him with Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. And then on the Brown side, I mean, you got to go with Kareem Hunt in these tournaments because Kareem Hunt is the good pivot off of Nick Chubb in the tournament strategy. It's not just about who you're playing, but it's about how many other people are going to play them. And that is exactly why Kareem Hunt is a pretty good option in DFS. And you got to go. I'm going to price down actually with Willie Snead over Marquise Brown so that I can fit in a decent last option into this lineup. I played Zeke over Mike Davis this week. Yeah, I think that was a fair decision, though. Zeke Elliott was an absolutely brutal person to be rooting for this week. He really did hurt a lot of my DFS lineups. There is no need to spam on the YouTube chat, guys. We'll get to you. I'm going to try to get to all of your questions. You made the playoffs in your first year. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. In your first year, in the year of 2020, one of the hardest fantasy seasons of all time, guys, if we're being real. This was an incredibly difficult fantasy football season with COVID and a lot of the injuries that happened with the first round picks. This was not an easy fantasy football season by any means. My favorite DFS plays today, yes, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Mark Andrews, it's Kareem Hunt. I think Willie Snead is an interesting value play tonight as well. No, you can't drop Jefferson or McLaren, guys. What's the best time to look at the Who Do I Start feature of WalterPicks? Dylan, we update our projections on Tuesdays around 4 o'clock, so anytime after that is the best possible time. But as we get closer and closer to the games, the projections are updated on a daily basis. So really right before game time is the best time to look at the Who Do I Start feature on the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store. Jarvis Landry to get 6. Yeah, he's going to get 6 points. He's gotten over 20 fantasy points in back-to-back games now. I do like Lamar Jackson as the best captain tonight. Lamar Jackson simply has a much, much higher ceiling than every other player playing tonight. Yeah, I do think you got to continue to start Deontay Johnson. James Conner, huge letdown, one of the prop misses of the week. To me, James Conner his starting role is in doubt. He I think averaged under 2 yards a carry against a run defense that has not been very good this season. Don't be fooled. The Buffalo Bills run defense is one of the biggest weaknesses of that defense. So definitely concerning sign for James Conner moving forward. And again, guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button. Really do appreciate that. If you're watching live on TikTok and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, not quite sure what you are waiting for. What do you think of Bryant at tight end? Yeah, with Austin Hooper out, Bryant is an interesting deep option, especially on DraftKings and FanDuel tonight at a really cheap price. Bryant is a good option. He's going to be the number 1 tight end for the Cleveland Browns tonight. Austin Hooper not playing, and we know that the Cleveland Browns love to have tight end out there on the field. There's a realistic chance that Bryant plays over 70% of the snaps for the Cleveland Browns tonight. So yeah, he is a great value play on DraftKings tonight. Cam Akers or Miles Sanders? I would lean towards Cam Akers again. Cam Akers is an RB1 in my opinion. You got to be starting him. Defense for round 2 of the playoffs. Yes, Philip. I like the New England Patriots as a very intriguing defense for week 15. They are historically good against rookie quarterbacks. I think that they could confuse Tua Tagovailoa and an injured receiving corps for the Dolphins as well. I do think that the Pats have a lot of upside at defense this upcoming week. What is Brandon Ayuk's value? He's a wide receiver 1. Luke, I told you to pick up Rams defense 3 weeks ago, and you got the dub this week. That's what I'm talking about, man. Planning ahead in fantasy football and in life is always a good strategy, guys, because people don't plan ahead. People don't plan ahead in life. They don't plan ahead in fantasy football. It's one of the easiest advantages to get in both life and fantasy football. Plan ahead, guys. Think a couple weeks ahead. Thoughts on Slant Boy? I do think that Slant Boy is a solid wide receiver 1 at this point. What is the full DFS lineup tonight? Matt, let me run through my DraftKings lineup with you. I'm going with Lamar Jackson at captain again. To me, he has unparalleled upside. And I think you got to be deciding between either Lamar Jackson or Nick Chubb in your captain spot because both of them just have such a higher 90th percentile outcome than the rest of the pool tonight. So I'm going Lamar Jackson in my captain slot, and I'm stacking him with Mark Andrews, who to me has the 3rd highest ceiling of the week. Of the game, excuse me. It goes Lamar Jackson, then Nick Chubb, then Mark Andrews for me. So I'm going Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. Then I'm stacking those 2 guys with Willie Snead, who could get a touchdown combined, stacked with Lamar Jackson, and then Ravens defense. Because if the Ravens defense does well, that probably means Lamar Jackson's rushing is also doing very well. On the other side of that, I'm stacking them against, on the Cleveland Browns side, in my DraftKings lineup, you gotta have a few Browns players, and I'm going with Kareem Hunt. And the reason I like Kareem Hunt in tournaments, especially on a single game slate, is all of the people, probably around at least 33% of the pool, is going with Nick Chubb tonight. And if Kareem Hunt ends up getting the goal line carries, which he absolutely could end up getting the goal line carries tonight, then you're going to cash in tournaments. It's going to be a very successful night for you. And Kareem Hunt is the only Browns player I have in this lineup right now. I went with Gus Edwards as well. I'm actually going to swap Gus Edwards out with a different Browns player because you got to have at least 2 Browns players in this lineup. And so with 6,100 left, I'm going to go with Harrison Bryant, who to me, again, a great value play I have 1,900 left over in this lineup, but I do like Bryant as the starting tight end for the Cleveland Browns tonight. They love to use their tight end. So there's my DraftKings lineup for the night, Matt. We've cashed for a couple straight weeks on these Monday night games. We'll see if we can do it again. I'm in the $1 million contest, $15 entry on DraftKings. You're down by 1. You have Andrews, Nias, Tucker. Yeah, you're going to win. It's always brutal. I hate having kickers in fantasy leagues because who knows? One of these kickers tonight could easily drop 15 points. Buffalo or New England defense next week. I really, really like the New England Patriots defense this week, excuse me. You think Tucker can score 9 for me to win my week? Yes, I definitely think he's capable of that. Thoughts on Rashard Higgins tonight? Yeah, Higgins is a guy who he actually had a pretty good week last week along with pretty much the entire Browns team. The Browns are coming off one of their best games of the season. Baker Mayfield had 5 touchdowns in the first half. I mean, it was insane. It was touchdown. And Rashard Higgins benefited from that. I don't think he's going to perform very well tonight, though. We do have one player prop going tonight in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store. I'm expecting that one to hit in the first half. And it's very rare that Walter, our artificially intelligent algorithm in the WalterPicks app that has had 67% accuracy on over 200 prop picks dating back to the beginning of last season, identifies a prop that has positive odds. But that's exactly what it did tonight. The prop tonight that we identified as exploitable has plus 140 odds. I mean, if this one hits, we're going to have a lot of people cashing in on some great value. Is CMC back next week? Jake, most likely Christian McCaffrey is back, though it's not confirmed. And I'm not giving away the player prop for free. You got to be a premium subscriber in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store to get access to that prop pick. Do you like Seattle defense now next week? Not nearly as much as I like Seattle Seahawks defense this week. But yeah, they are still a pretty good option next week. I think I would honestly rather the Patriots, though. McLaren or Hilton next week. I would probably still lean towards McLaren. What do you think about Njoku for 1K this week? Yeah, that's an interesting value play given that Austin Hooper is out, but I like Bryant more than Njoku. Lamar over 200 yards. Lamar Jackson's never a lock for the passing yards, as we learned last week. I wouldn't trust Lamar Jackson's passing yardage. Does Ayuk deserve Julio Jones's spot? I think he does, man. Ayuk has been on an absolute tear. He's got a 30% target share. That's up there with the likes of Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins. There are very few players in the NFL that have a 30% target share over the last month. That is what Ayuk has done with Deebo Samuel in the lineup for most of those games. And we know Deebo Samuel's out now for the rest of the season. So Ayuk is a solid wide receiver 1 moving forward, guys. And again, here's my favorite fantasy options tonight. I think that these guys are going to win people their first playoff matchup of the week. Lamar Jackson, I think he's going over 25 fantasy points tonight. I think he's a very good chance to go over 30. Nick Chubb also has unparalleled upside. Nick Chubb, the most efficient running back in the NFL at the moment. No one even comes close to him. He is running up against stacked boxes at the highest rate in the NFL. Defenses are stacking the box when Nick Chubb is on the field, as they should. But the craziest part of this is Nick Chubb leads the NFL in yards after first contact. So even when people are stacking the box, Nick Chubb is dominating. And it is a truly impressive thing to see a defense go up against an offense, know exactly what they're going to do, and the offense still succeed. That's what we've seen with the Cleveland Browns. Guys, Nick Chubb, number 1 in the NFL in yards created per touch. He is number 1 in breakaway runs, number 1 in yards per carry. He's been an absolute monster. For playoffs, Evans or Anderson for flex, I would probably lean towards Robbie Anderson. Pick 2, week 15, McKissick or Dobbins. I would lean towards Zeke, McKissick, or Dobbins. I'd lean towards Zeke again. He's still seeing the volume, though. Man, Ezekiel Elliott has really been letting us down. And guys, if you're watching live on YouTube right now, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. It helps us out a ton. Yeah, Alvin Kamara has been a bit of a letdown as well, though he did get in the end zone. He still provided running back 1 value for you this week. Mark Andrews up by 3 versus Landry and Brown. Who wins? I think Mark Andrews could actually win that one. It's going to be close, though. Ayuk or Robbie Anderson for week 15. You can't be benching Ayuk, guys. You just can't bench him. He's too good. He's seeing too much volume. Ayuk should be in 0 questions. Get him into your starting lineup for the next week. He's going to win you a fantasy championship. My opponent needs 26 from Andrews. Do I win? I wouldn't lock up the win yet, guys. Again, if you're in a close fantasy matchup and you still have these guys going, Lamar Jackson, Nick Chubb, Mark Andrews, do not chalk up the game yet. Your game is not over because their 90th percentile outcome, each of them, is very, very high. I do think Chubb is going to go over 7.5 receiving yards again, though the line tonight that I saw was over 18. They've clearly adjusted to what was obviously exploitable last week. Nick Chubb over 8 receiving yards. That was an absolute lock, hitting the first drive last week. DJ Moore or Kiki QT, I would lean towards DJ Moore. You got your prop pick wrong. I know, Harry. The Phillip Lindsay over 27 rushing yards was a brutally bad beat. He had 28 rushing yards after 10 carries. On his 11th carry, he goes for -5 rushing yards, ends with 23. Absolutely brutal from Phillip Lindsay, though he did hit it. Then he went back and then missed. It was brutal. JT or Aaron Jones next week. You can't be benching Jonathan Taylor. So what's the fantasy team? Today with MVP? James, I think that Lamar Jackson is the best captain position tonight on DraftKings and FanDuel. Lamar Jackson has unparalleled upside. He's going to be a fantasy football league winner. I think that, it was brutally unlucky. The Phillip Lindsay thing was just awful. I do think that Lamar Jackson is going to go over 25 fantasy points tonight, and he's going to continue his path to being a league-winning fantasy football quarterback. You're up 2 with Lamar, but he is Chubb. Yeah, you're fine, man. You're definitely fine. Hilton or Jefferson? I think you can't be benching Justin Jefferson. I know he had a down week, but I don't think you can be benching him yet. Can the Browns' D and Landry put up 22? Yes, Jarvis Landry's been over 20 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks. He could do it himself. J.K. Dobbins has a chance to go over 12 fantasy points. I don't think he's going to, though. I think J.K. Dobbins is really going to let some people down tonight. JT or Aaron Jones next week? Again, you can't bench Jonathan Taylor. You think Lamar Jackson can get 27 points? Yes, I absolutely do. Thoughts on Terry McLaurin not being very good last 2 weeks? Yeah, I think we can chalk that up to horrible quarterback play. I don't think it's Terry McLaurin's fault. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. And again, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, you're watching live on TikTok, you got to go check us out. We're live on YouTube right now. We're posting some longer form content on there every single week. I do think Jarvis Landry is going to get over 10 points tonight. Do you think CMC will return this week or next week or the season? Yeah, I do think Christian McCaffrey is going to return this week. You should add Prize Picks to your app. Yeah, we're actually in talks of a partnership with Prize Picks, so that's exciting. Thoughts on just destinations for Allen Robinson next year? Yeah, I hope that he goes to the Packers. I mean, man, would that be fun? How many points do you think Chubb will score today? I think Nick Chubb's going over 20 fantasy points tonight, the most efficient running back in the NFL heading into tonight. Despite seeing the most stacked boxes in the NFL, Nick Chubb just continues to produce. Miles Sanders. Victor, I know it was brutal to not be starting Miles Sanders, though remember, Victor, you are making your own start-sit decisions. And Miles Sanders, the process behind sitting Miles Sanders was actually very sound this week up against a Saints defense that had one of the best running defenses of all time going into this week. I think Lamar Jackson's going over 25 fantasy points tonight, guys. Lamar Jackson's going to continue his path to being a league winner. I think Mark Andrews is going to have a good night tonight as well. Again, if I'm ranking my favorite fantasy options tonight in order, it goes Lamar Jackson number 1, Nick Chubb number 2, and Mark Andrews number 3. Lamar Jackson, the upside for him is about as high as you could possibly envision. The upside for Nick Chubb is also about as high as you could possibly imagine. If they're in your fantasy lineups tonight or you're going up against them, your matchup is not over. I don't care what the score is. Mark Andrews also has upside of over 25 points if he can find the answer, if he can find the end zone multiple times. My name is not Walter Samwise. My name is Sam, actually. And I The app and the brand are called WalterPicks. You can find the app on the iOS App Store, by the way, completely free. The app is called WalterPicks because I spent over 3 years designing an artificially intelligent and machine learning algorithm. I named that algorithm Walter. He has had more accurate projections than ESPN, Yahoo, PFF, and any other source of projections that you have used. We've also used this artificially intelligent algorithm named Walter to exploit player prop picks. And these are relatively new on sportsbooks that you can bet on specific player performances. They really have come around just in the last 3 years, and they are not an efficient market yet. And that's why we've been able to exploit them using artificial intelligence. We've had 67% accuracy on over 200 picks dating back to the beginning of last season. Elias says he loves the app and he's dominated with our prop picks. I appreciate that. Any betting advice for tonight? I have your app. Yeah, man. My betting advice for tonight, I do think that the Ravens are going to win the game. But I also think that the Browns +3 is pretty good value, given that their win probability is about 49%. +3 is not horrible value for them, given the spread. I think that Lamar Jackson, though, is not someone I really like betting against. Love your work. Thanks, Grady. I appreciate it. DFS lineup. Yeah, my DFS lineup tonight, I went with Lamar Jackson at the captain spot on DraftKings. I think Lamar Jackson has unparalleled upside in this game. There's not any player in this game with more upside than Lamar Jackson. The only competitor is Nick Chubb. And I think you have to be deciding between Lamar Jackson or Nick Chubb in your captain slot tonight. Then to stack with Lamar Jackson, I stacked him with Mark Andrews, Willie Snead, and the Ravens defense, because Mark Andrews and Willie Snead, pretty good shot at touchdowns tonight. The Ravens defense does pretty well when Lamar does well, because there's a correlation of rushing success and defense success. And then on the Cleveland Browns side, I'm going with Harrison Bryant, who is filling in the starting tight end role for the Cleveland Browns with Austin Hooper out. I think he has a pretty good shot at a touchdown tonight. And then Kareem Hunt, who is the great perfect pivot in a tournament with a lot of lineups in it. Kareem Hunt's a fantastic pivot off of Nick Chubb, because there's a chance that Kareem Hunt is the player that ends up seeing the goal line carries. There's always the chance for that in this Browns offense. Are you teaching online? Yes, Jackson, I am teaching online. I have been since the start of the school. Can you explain your app? I might get it. Yes, Harry, here is how the app works in just 60 seconds. I designed an artificially intelligent algorithm, named it Walter. It projects fantasy football points more accurately than any projections that are out there in the universe. For example, ESPN and Yahoo, we've been 17% more accurate than them since the beginning of last season. You can also get access to a DFS lineup optimizer that helps you absolutely dominate on DraftKings and FanDuel every single Sunday. For example, 2 weeks ago, our artificially intelligent optimizer told every single one of our subscribers to start Darren Waller. And then he went on to have the 6th best fantasy game for tight end of all time. So I do think that the optimizer will return value for you even within just the 3-day free trial. It's completely free to try out the premium features of the app. If you don't use the premium features of the app, there's also tons of free content like start sit advice with boom and bust probabilities based on 10,000 simulations of each week, not to mention our player props, which have had 67% accuracy since the beginning of last season. I hope I kept that under 60 seconds for you. Yes, I am currently a high school math teacher. I do this full-time as well. I work basically 2 full-time jobs, around 90 hours a week. Yeah, Matt, I agree. They've really struggled to stop tight ends. And I also agree that spreads, the market for spreads is very efficient. They are very good at setting the lines for spreads and the money lines. I mean, it is extremely hard to extract an edge when betting on football games, the spread or the outcome, which is why I only bet on player prop picks. And it's why I've had a positive ROI betting on prop picks. I actually used a lot of the money I won last season and invested it into building this app this season. It's where I got a lot of the money to start this business. So yeah, I do like the prop picks more than the spreads. Why does Russell Wilson hate Tyler Lockett? It's a fantastic question, man. Hey, love the app. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Should I start Rieger over Godwin next week? No, you can't do that. But I mean, what has Chris Godwin done to Tom Brady to be a wide receiver 3 in fantasy football now? And guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button. Really do appreciate that. If you're playing and risking any sort of money on this game tonight, I think the money's got to be risked on something related to Lamar Jackson, because to me, Lamar Jackson is the best player playing tonight. Yes, Harry, I'm pumped that you made the semis in the fantasy football playoffs. I think that Lamar Jackson has a chance to go over 30 fantasy points tonight, guys. I am proud of you, Harry. Good job. Do you think I could win tonight if I have Lamar Jackson down by 29 points? Yes, I do think he can still win. You're never out of the fight with Lamar Jackson. Is Golladay a start next week, Sam? Yeah, he is if he plays, though I'm not expecting him to play. I don't think Mark Andrews is going to score under 10.5 fantasy points tonight. I'm sorry to spoil your night. I think Mark Andrews is going to have a fantastic game against a Browns defense, allowing the third most fantasy points to tight ends this season. They really have not stopped. Tight ends. And Mark Andrews, by the way, back when they played each other in week 1, had 2 touchdowns in that game. Cole Kmet, Jonnu, or Jared Cook next week. I like Cole Kmet the most rest of season. Go add him. Hype up David Montgomery. Marcus, there was not very more obvious buy low candidates than David Montgomery. I remember posting that buy low video and in the comments, just so much David Montgomery hates and just pointing to those comments and saying, this is exactly why we're buying David Montgomery. You are way too low on a player who's seeing 90% of the snaps for his team. He's seeing top 10 volume per game at the running back position in the NFL. He just hasn't found the end zone yet. And he has had tough matchups, which get much easier in the fantasy football playoffs. The process behind trading for David Montgomery was just perfect. And it's really, really paid off. Should I do Waller for Kelce? Yeah, of course, guys. Travis Kelce leads the NFL in receiving yards right now. That is not something you can just blink your eyes at. This is insane. A tight end leading the NFL in receiving yards is absolutely astronomically something that we might never see again in the history of our life. Like there's probably never going to be a tight end that leads the league in receiving yards again. People are still trading. Yeah, I don't really understand how there's been no trade deadline in some of these leagues. My trade deadline was months ago. I have Chubb, Carson, and Connor. I picked up Akers. Should I consider playing him? Yeah, you can definitely consider playing him over both Chris Carson and James Conner. I would be dropping T.Y. Hilton for Ayuk. Yeah, Kelce is very good. Travis Kelce this season has very much entrenched himself in the best tight end of all time. Best tight end of all time. He's very much in that conversation. To me right now, the best tight end of all time is Rob Gronkowski, and his career is not over yet either. But what Travis Kelce has done for such a consistent period of time cannot be overlooked. And if he leads the NFL in receiving yards, I think he goes down as the best tight end of all time. I took an L. James Conner and Deontay Johnson sold for hard. Yeah, both the Steelers offense really struggled. My first week of the playoffs went very well. Thank you for asking. I'm on to the second round in multiple leagues, and it came down to the Gabriel Davis touchdown for me. I'm in some deep leagues. The Gabriel Davis touchdown probably won me thousands of dollars in my fantasy leagues. That was a huge, huge one for me. And I also traded for Jonathan Taylor and David Montgomery in multiple leagues. I also had Derrick Henry, who I've been telling everyone to trade for. So my first week of the playoffs went very, very well. Thanks for asking. But we're never celebrating too soon, guys. Do not celebrate till you win that championship. It is all about getting that trophy. In the playoffs, do you think that I should start Mitch or Murray? I'm scared for Murray. Yeah, Mitch Trubisky's actually been a great fantasy football asset. And if you are on the riskier side, if you like to live life on the edge, then yeah, go ahead. Play Mitch Trubisky over Kyler Murray. I personally would not be doing that, though. Panic on Aaron Jones. You can panic about him, but you can't take him out of your starting lineup because he still does have too much upside in one of the best offenses in the NFL. Should we be nervous about Justin Herbert? Yeah, Zach, you can definitely be nervous about Justin Herbert, who has now not bounced back after one of the worst games of all time, one of the worst performances of a quarterback of all time against the New England Patriots. He does not bounce back against a pretty weak secondary for the Atlanta Falcons. So, yeah, you can be concerned about him. He's not going to have an easier matchup than the Falcons for the rest of the season. Yeah, you're going to win, Tyler, if you have Chubb versus Browns defense and you're already tied. And again, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes. Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? I'm leaning towards Aaron Rodgers. Somehow I beat Derrick Henry this week. Don't know how that was possible. Told my friend all about it. Nice. That's great. What do I do about James Conner? You can't be starting James Conner moving forward, guys. He averaged under 2 yards a carry against a bad Buffalo Bills defense that has not been good against the run. I mean, by the way, we called it in our bold predictions. The Bills were going to beat the Steelers by over 10 points. That one came true. We also called in our bold predictions this week that the Eagles were going to beat the Saints. I mean, we get a lot of disrespect in the comments about our bold predictions. Meanwhile, we've had 15% accuracy on our bold predictions this season, and we keep them bold, all caps, so not so bad for our accuracy on our bold predictions. Looking forward to making our Week 15 bold predictions starting tomorrow when I finish the projections. Miles Sanders, a start next week. Yeah, he's a start with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. He has an increased floor and ceiling now. Murray or Hurts? I'm also worried about Murray. Yeah, you can think about starting Murray over Hurts. You started Perriman over Mike Davis. You still won, though, Harry. Thank God you still won. Perriman, such a bust. I cannot stand trusting players that are in close proximity to Adam Gase. Yo, bro, you were wrong about Phillip Lindsay. Yeah, dude. Phillip Lindsay had 28 rushing yards after he had 10 carries, and then he went for -5 yards on his last carry of the game, ends with 23 rushing yards. Absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. I was counting my money already when he had 28 rushing yards. WalterPicks Fantasy Basketball Edition. Keep your eye out, Rigbone. We're going to have some big announcements coming in the next few weeks. Hurts or Herbert this week. I hate Thursday players. Yeah, Thursday players are tough, but I do like Hurts as a pretty good upside option with a high floor. Guys, 100 rushing yards cannot be overlooked in fantasy football from the quarterback position. You have 9.7. You have Jarvis Landry. Yeah, you're probably going to be counting. You're probably going to win. Yeah, you can never count your money in sports betting or in fantasy football. That was a big mistake by me. I was pumped. Late in the fourth quarter, Phillip Lindsay gets a good carry, goes over 27 rushing yards, and then his last carry of the game, he touches the ball, gets absolutely pummeled for -5 yards. God, absolutely brutal. Start 3, Taylor, Kamara, Chubb, Eckler, Robinson. I would probably go Taylor, Chubb, and Eckler there. All three of those guys have such high upside. Jarvis Landry or Mark Andrews. I like Mark Andrews more than Jarvis Landry tonight. To me, again, if I'm ranking my fantasy options for tonight, it goes Lamar Jackson number 1, Nick Chubb number 2. Mark Andrews comes in at number 3 for me in the fantasy options tonight. He has a really, really high ceiling. You're down by 40. You only have Lamar left. If there's anyone that can do it, it's Lamar Jackson. So you got a little bit of hope. And again, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button. Really do appreciate it. Yeah, Matt, my Miles Sanders calls couldn't be more wrong. Back-to-back weeks, I've said the complete opposite thing of what Miles Sanders has done. Week 14, if Miles Sanders did what he did in Week 15 and Week 14, it would have been my best week in sports betting and fantasy football of all time. I literally would have cashed for 6 figures. I mean, it would have been brutal. It would have been amazing on DraftKings in these tournaments that I had Miles Sanders in. And then he goes up against the Saints defense, the best running defense in the league, and he has one of his best games of the season. I mean, just ridiculous. Yeah, you should probably just do the opposite of what I'm saying Miles Sanders is going to do each week. Hey, Sam, subscriber here. Julio, Ayuk, or Thielen? I would probably lean towards Ayuk there as a solid wide receiver 1 in fantasy, guys. Brandon Ayuk, over 75 yards in 4 straight weeks. He's averaging a 30% target share over the last month. That's up there with Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins. There's very few players with a greater target share over the last 4 weeks than Brandon Ayuk. I mean, it is very, very impressive what he has been able to do. He's going to be very, very good for a long time. You have to be starting Cam Akers, guys. There's no reason you can talk yourself out of not starting Cam Akers. You absolutely have to be starting him for the rest of the season. He's a running back 1 now. Running back 1. Guys, there are very few players with over 30% target share over the last month. Here they are. Here are the only players with a greater target share over the last month than Brandon Ayuk. It's Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, and actually Marquise Brown, just because they don't throw the ball at all. Those are the only receivers with a greater target share than Brandon Ayuk. I mean, he's seen a wide receiver 1 level target share. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, these are the only players with a greater target share than Brandon Ayuk. very impressive from the rookie. Ridley or Woods? Definitely Ridley. Ridley, guys, he's been one of the safest options every single time Julio Jones is out. I think Julio Jones is shut down for the season. And guys, if you're watching live on YouTube right now, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes. T.Y., Jarvis, Devontae Parker next week. I would probably lean towards Jarvis Landry, but it is very close. Pick 3, please. Keenan, McLaren, Akers, Kupp, Hopkins, Ayuk. I'd go Ayuk, Keenan Allen, and probably Akers there. You need 27 from Andrews, Anthony, and the bad game from the Ravens defense. Unlikely, but again, if I'm ranking the fantasy options for tonight, especially in terms of upside, Lamar Jackson's going to absolutely ball out tonight. He's going over 25 fantasy points. I think that Nick Chubb is an absolute lock to go over 10 fantasy points. He has a very good chance to go over 20 as well. After that, I think Mark Andrews has some of the most intriguing upside tonight against a Browns defense that is bottom 5 in the NFL defending tight ends this season. I also think Kareem Hunt has pretty high upside tonight. He has a low floor because he is the number 2 option, but there's also a chance every single game for the Browns that Kareem Hunt's the guy who ends up getting the goal line carries. And for that reason, he has an intriguing upside. And that's why I'm pivoting to Kareem Hunt in the tournament on DraftKings tonight, because if he is the one who gets 2+ touchdowns and not Nick Chubb tonight, you are going to absolutely cash in on DraftKings if you played Kareem Hunt. J.K. Dobbins needs 6 points. I think that could actually end up being pretty close. I think that J.K. Dobbins could let down a lot of people tonight. J.K. Dobbins could really struggle. And the reason I'm pretty out on J.K. Dobbins is that he is having to split carries with not only Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards, but also Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson, his threat of stealing those red zone carries is very real. Is taking Chubb and Hunt bad for tonight? No, it's not bad. In the scenario where the Browns blow out the Ravens, it's going to do very well. You should probably stack the Browns defense with that one. Chubb over 83 yards. Yes. Guys, yes, I do know Y = MX + B. I'm teaching that actually right now in my math classes. And I do teach high school math. I teach Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and statistics. Who would I start Cam Akers over if I have Aaron Jones, Eckler, and Jacobs? It's obviously Josh Jacobs, who has a lower floor than Cam Akers at this point. Mike Davis or Gallman. Definitely Mike Davis over Gallman if CMC is out. If CMC is not out, though, then it becomes a much easier decision. And again, if you're watching live on YouTube, guys, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes. If you're watching live on TikTok and you haven't checked out our YouTube yet, you got to go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Over 2,000 YouTube subscribers in under 1 month. We're posting longer form content every single week over on YouTube. Running back 2 or flex ideas. Overall, I mean, I think Cam Akers is a running back 1 now if you want some ideas there. And if you wanted to bet on Nick Chubb's over-under tonight, guys, it's rising by the second. Every single week, I feel like there's a serious line movement on Nick Chubb's line. We've seen it rise. I believe it was at 70 this morning. And now Nick Chubb's over-under rushing yards is if you wanted to bet on it, it's all the way up to 87. 87 over-under yards for Nick Chubb. I think he's still going to go over that, but we will see. Just subscribed. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Need 10.5 non-PPR to make the playoffs. Hunt or Jarvis or Hollywood. I would probably, if you need 10.5, I think you got to go with Jarvis Landry, who has had over 20 fantasy points in back-to-back games. He's had back-to-back games with 8 catches and a touchdown. Yeah, I'm pretty confident, Tyler, in Akers over Josh Jacobs. You need Mark Andrews over 15.2 in full PPR. I think that's going to hit tonight, man. I'm pretty confident about Mark Andrews tonight. Herbert or Tannehill? I like Tannehill more than Herbert. Tannehill has been cooking. What's up, Sam? You think I should start J.K. Dobbins or Kareem Hunt? Definitely, in my opinion, it's Kareem Hunt over J.K. Dobbins tonight. I think Kareem Hunt has the better chance at a touchdown. You're going to get over 21 points from Lamar, guys. And if you don't, then you had no chance at a championship anyway because you drafted Lamar Jackson in the first 3 rounds. I think Lamar Jackson, he's going to continue to be a league-winning option in fantasy football as he was last week. He helped you get to this game in the fantasy football playoffs. I think he's going to continue to get you to the next round. I'm not going to be surprised if Lamar Jackson is going over 30 fantasy points. Eckler is questionable. No, I think Eckler is going to play this week. Deontay Johnson leads the NFL with 12 drops, but drops are one of the noisiest stats, the least sticky stats in the NFL. It's not something you should read into at all. Robbie Anderson or Kenyon Drake, I would lean towards Robbie. Kareem Hunt better make 10 points. I do think he has a good chance to get over 10 points. The most gang Stava. How's it going, man? Dobbins is going to score 15 tonight. I don't think so, Andrew. Math finals tomorrow. Getting into fantasy is more important. Good luck on your math finals tomorrow. Trust Herbert this week. Yeah, I do think that Herbert's going to go over 15 points, but he's really been disappointing. And I was expecting a big bounce back performance for Herbert against the Atlanta Falcons, and we did not see that happen. So he's a little bit risky. And honestly, I think Jalen Hurts might be a better fantasy option than Justin Herbert. All of a sudden, he had 100 rushing yards against a very good run defense, guys. You know the status on CMC/Gibson for next week? I think both of them are going to play, but neither of those two things is confirmed. Start three, A.J. Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, or James Robinson. I would lean towards those first three guys. I think you got to bench James Robinson there. I'm up by 21. Just Chubb left. That's going to be a close one. I think Lamar Jackson's going over 25 fantasy points tonight. Not going to surprise me at all if he goes over 30. I think that Mark Andrews is going to have a fantastic game. I think that Nick Chubb is also going to do very well. Nick Chubb, the most efficient running back in the NFL right now, leading the NFL in breakaway run rate, leading the NFL in yards created per touch, leading the NFL in yards per carry, despite facing the most stacked boxes per rush in the NFL. I also think that Kareem Hunt has a pretty high upside tonight. He could end up stealing those goal line carries away from Nick Chubb. What's Chubb's floor? I need him to get 70 to win. I think that Nick Chubb's floor is 10 fantasy points. I'd be shocked if he got under that. McLaren or Jefferson. At this point, you got to be leaning towards Justin Jefferson, who has proved to have a much higher ceiling than Terry McLaren. T.Y. Hilton or Corey Davis. I still like Corey Davis a little bit more than T.Y. Hilton. Hoping you have a good day. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Week 15. We're already on to week 15. Boyd, QT, Pittman. I would probably rank those guys as QT number 1, Boyd number 2, and Pittman number 3. Will Keenan Allen play Thursday? Yes, I do think Keenan Allen's going to play Thursday. What are your thoughts on Kyler Murray right now? I'm getting worried. Yeah, you can be worried. The injury has clearly limited him. I do think, though, he's getting healthier and healthier by the week, and I think we can expect his performances to increase by the week as well. And don't overlook that the Giants' defense is actually very good. So I don't think you should overreact to the bad performance by Kyler Murray this week. I wish I could send you my team and just tell me what you think. Well, Marcus, that's exactly what you can do in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store. I do think you should go use that because it can help you with your fantasy team, Marcus. I meant ceiling. Yeah, Nick Chubb's ceiling, his 90th percentile outcome is around 35 points. So hoping for 70 might be a little bit overly optimistic. Hurts or Herbert? I think we're going to have Jalen Hurts ranked ahead of Justin Herbert heading into week 15, because 100 rushing yards gives him just such a high floor. Starting Dobbins over Sanders is going to pay off, I believe. We will see about that one. Miles Sanders had one of his best games of the season against a very good run defense. I do think you can trust Justin Jefferson even against the Bears defense. A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Jefferson, Woods, pick 3. I like all 3 of those first 3 guys. I don't think you can bench any of those 3 guys. I would be starting Jefferson over Robert Woods. Recent premium subscriber, Jared, thank you so much, man. Yeah, if you really want to support the brand, guys, go become a premium subscriber in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store. Jared, every single premium subscriber brings me one step closer to a dream come true of doing this full time. So I do appreciate that. Will David Johnson or Mixon play next week? Because they have good weeks. Yeah, they do have good weeks. I do think that David Johnson has a chance to suit up. Mixon, though, Mixon's been out for a while, and there's no reason for the Bengals to rush him back. So I wouldn't count on Mixon, but I would expect David Johnson to be playing. What should I do with Miles Sanders? I think at this point, he's got to go back in your starting lineup. But God, Miles Sanders has been an absolute headache in fantasy football. We thought he was going to do great in week 13. He busts. We think he's going to do horrible in week 14. He does absolutely amazing. Thoughts on Amari Cooper rest of the season? I think Amari Cooper is settling in as a risky, high upside, low floor wide receiver 2. Again, on the playoff implications of this game, guys, if the Browns win tonight, they're in the playoffs. If the Ravens win tonight, they have over an 80% chance at making the playoffs. If the Ravens lose, they have under a 40% chance to be in the playoffs, about 1/3 chance to be in the playoffs. This is a huge huge game. This game had the most playoff implications of any game this week. Chubb absolutely has a chance to get 26, and Landry could definitely go over 17 points. Landry has had back-to-back games over 20 fantasy points, guys. It is very, very possible that he goes over 20 points again. What happened to Evans last game? Really, the whole Bucs offense stalled, and it ended up being Scotty Miller that caught the deep touchdown. I mean, pretty ridiculous from that Bucs offense. We also had Gronk expected to go over 35 receiving yards in his one catch. It happened to be a touchdown. I've got a super tough decision. Taylor, Jefferson, or Akers. I'd probably lean towards Jonathan Taylor. I'm up by 77. He is Chubb. No, you're going to be fine. Ebron or Thomas. I would lean towards Michael Thomas or Logan Thomas. I'm assuming that is. I would probably lean towards Logan Thomas. Walter, do you agree with me on starting anybody on the Rams this week? Yeah, I do. And my name's actually not Walter. Classic mix-up. Don't worry about it. My name is Sam. I've designed an artificially intelligent algorithm named Walter. You can get access to his industry-leading projections in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store, completely free to download, completely free to try out. Definitely go check it out if you haven't checked out that app yet. I've spent over 400 hours at this point building that app. I've spent over 3 years building Walter to the point that he is the most accurate projections on the world. Yeah, Corey Davis flopped this week. His only his second game of the season under 10 fantasy points. I do think Robert Tonyan is settling in as one of the primary red zone options for Aaron Rodgers, and it gives him some of the highest touchdown upside at the tight end position every single week. James Conner can't be trusted anymore. Under 2 yards a carry against a Bills defense that has struggled to stop running backs this season. Not a good sign for James Conner. And if you're watching live on YouTube, definitely hit that like button if you haven't hit that like button yet. What's the deal with Keenan Allen and Eckler's injury? I think both of them are going to be okay, but we will have to monitor them throughout the week because we have not, as we get closer, I think they're playing on Thursday night in week 15 as well. So we're definitely going to have to monitor that heading into the games for week 15. Yeah, they do play on Thursday night, so tough turnaround for both of them. I'm up 30, and my opponent has Nick Chubb. Should I be worried? Yeah, you can be worried because the 90th percentile range of outcomes for Nick Chubb is 35 fantasy points. So there's a chance that he can do it. What's Akers' value? Akers' value is a running back 1. Montgomery is an absolute must start, as we said he was this week. Same with Cam Akers. We told everyone to start Cam Akers and David Montgomery this week. You have to start both of them moving forward as well. I like Robert Tonyan more than Logan Thomas moving forward. Again, I think Cam Akers is a running back 1 now. I would not be trusting James Conner in week 15, guys. Alternate over 130 rushing yards for Chubb. Yeah, I like it a lot. If you're going to go shoot for the upside with those odds, I don't mind Nick Chubb over 130 at all. The most efficient running back in the NFL right now. What's good, Sam? Jared, good to see you. How about Mark Andrews or Gesicki for week 15? Definitely Andrews. I think you're going to see it very clear tonight that Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end in fantasy football. He's the primary target for Lamar Jackson. I think Mark Andrews is going to do very well. I think he's going to go over 15 fantasy points tonight. He's going to save a lot of people. Drake getting TD every game. Yeah, he has been on a touchdown streak. Sup, man? Yeah, Mark Andrews is good for 10-plus points tonight. I think he's going over 15 fantasy points. Again, if I was ranking my favorite fantasy options tonight, it goes Lamar Jackson number 1. Nick Chubb, number 2. To be both those guys have unparalleled upside. If you're playing on DraftKings or FanDuel tonight, you got to have one of those guys in your captain slot. Number 3 for me, though, is Mark Andrews, who I think is going to have a fantastic game against a Browns defense that has struggled to stop tight ends this season, bottom 5 in the league in tight end, allowing tight ends fantasy points per game. Claypool or Gaskin at flex. We'll see if Gaskin can return in time for their game. But if he does, I would probably go with Gaskin. I'm nervous about J.K. Dobbins tonight, splitting carries with Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, and Mark Ingram. It's tough to predict J.K. Dobbins for a touchdown. Montgomery or Sanders, rest of season. Montgomery still. Guys, David Montgomery, we knew he has the second easiest playoff schedule in the NFL. And the easiest playoff schedule is none other than Derrick Henry, who we knew was going to win fantasy football leagues if you had him and you made the playoffs. Is it time to sit Ezekiel Elliott? Yes, depending on your other options, it could be time. He has struggled to find the end zone this year. JT is going to be a high pick next year. Yeah, Nick. Jonathan Taylor is going to end this year strong. This is what we were expecting out of him coming out of Wisconsin, and he's starting to show why he was the first running back picked in this class. Jonathan Taylor, guys, he has a chance to be a beast. Not the first running back, second running back picked in this class, I believe. Akers or Jacobs moving forward. I would lean towards Akers over Jacobs. I do think Christian McCaffrey is going to be back next week. Even though I don't really understand why they would rush him back, I do think he's going to be back. Yeah, Todd Gurley was one of our must-sits this week. I told everyone and their mother to bench Todd Gurley this week. I've been telling everyone to bench Todd Gurley. The second that he showed up on the injury report with a knee injury, you had to get rid of Todd Gurley, guys. The biggest concern for Todd Gurley this year was the knee. It was that bone in between his thigh and his calf. That was the concern for Todd Gurley. And the second he showed up on the injury report with that same knee injury, I was fully out on Todd Gurley. He was straight to the bench on every single team. I mean, you can't trust Todd Gurley in your lineups, guys. He's on the decline. And man, old running backs really did struggle this year. We saw David Johnson struggle to return value. We saw Todd Gurley struggle to return value. Mark Ingram, one of the biggest busts of fantasy football this year. People were drafting him in like the 4th or 5th round. Godwin or Ayuk next week. Love the app. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I would be going Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. 30% target share. 30% target share over the last month. The only players with a higher target share than Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, and Michael Thomas. Then it's Brandon Ayuk. I mean, think about that list that he's in. It goes Michael Thomas, then Devontae Adams, then Stephon Diggs, and then right there is Brandon Ayuk. A very impressive list to be on. You got to love what Brandon Ayuk has done over the last month. He's gotten over 75 yards in 4 straight games. Do you have any information about what your machine learning model looks like? Yeah, Matt. Our machine learning model, it mixes together actually several different machine learning models now. We've really expanded it from the very beginning. It started as just a linear regression, but now we mix together a random forest model, a linear regression model, and several other types of artificially intelligent algorithms all morphed into one. And then it also looks at our 10,000 simulations of each week. It reads in that information. It includes a lot of different stats, but the biggest thing that the algorithm looks at and that it weights most heavily is just volume, the amount of times a player has been targeted or touched the ball over the last 3 weeks. Like, that is the most predictive thing in the algorithm. That's probably one of the biggest learnings I've had while designing the algorithm, is that really volume is king. The opportunity a player sees, and it's not surprising. It's not this like revolutionary finding, though it is always worth repeating, that the more a player gets targeted and the more a player touches the ball, the more fantasy football points they score. That's not an overly surprising thing. Herbert, Tua, or Hurts rest of season. I would probably rank them as Hurts, then Herbert, then Tua. I think Tua is going to struggle against the Pats. Cole Kmet going forward. Seems like too many mouths to feed in Atlanta for Hurts to eat. Yeah, I do like Cole Kmet. He's been an ad for us over the last couple of weeks. He has the number 1 tight end role in the Bears offense. Don't be fooled. Jimmy Graham scored the touchdown, but Cole Kmet has taken his starting job, and he is a top 12 tight end now. Anyone who's saying that they're down, but they have Nick Chubb, if you're down by 15 or less, you're almost definitely winning. 25, and yeah, you still have a good chance. I totally agree, Matt. If you're down by anything less than 25 points and you still have Lamar Jackson, or you still have Nick Chubb, or even if you still have Mark Andrews, you're in that game, and you're probably going to have a pretty good chance to win, especially if it's Nick Chubb or Lamar Jackson. They have really high floors and very high upside. What's wrong with Golladay? Well, he has a hip injury that his coaches have been lying to us about for months now, and they clearly underreported how serious the injury was. Either that, or they just honestly did not know how serious the hip injury was. It's one of those two things, because they were saying he was likely back the week after he suffered the injury, and now it's over a month that we have seen Kenny Golladay on the field. Speaking of guys who have been out for a while, how about Joe Mixon? Where has Joe Mixon been? There's been very little news about Joe Mixon, who's just been sitting on the sidelines for over a month now as well. Hunter Henry or Mark Andrews? It's got to be Mark Andrews. To me, Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end option. Goddard or Gronk this week? Love the help, Philip. I would go Gronk for sure. Do you like Akers over Monty, Jacobs, and Sanders? Akers over Monty, Jacobs, and Sanders. Yeah, I do like Cam Akers over all three of those guys, though I do really like David Montgomery as well. And guys, if you're watching live on YouTube right now, hit that like button. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Really would appreciate that. If we could hit that mark, that would be very exciting. And if you're watching live on TikTok and you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube yet, don't know what you're waiting for. We're posting weekly content on YouTube to help you dominate fantasy football, to help you dominate daily fantasy football on DraftKings and FanDuel. We're going to be posting some content about that this week. So don't know what you're waiting for to subscribe to us over on YouTube. We passed 2,000 YouTube subscribers in under a month, which is very exciting. Yo, Walter, up by 36. He is Marquise Brown. You think I'm fine? Yeah, you are fine, Tyler. And my name's actually Sam. It's not Walter. I built an algorithm and I named him Walter. I see how that can be confusing. You can get access to his machine learning projections in the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store. It's the classic mix-up, so don't worry about it. Congrats on 2K. Thanks, man. Yeah, a lot of you listening now were with us when we had just 100 YouTube subscribers, and now flash forward to like 3.5 weeks later, we got 2,000. Very exciting. Is JT a must start? Yes. Jonathan Taylor is a must start. Cam Akers is a must start. David Montgomery is also a must start. All of these guys are must start. I'm starting a fantasy basketball league. Any tips? Yes. My tips for your fantasy basketball league would be to draft Jason Tatum as early as you possibly need to, because Jason Tatum is going to take another leap this year and he's going to absolutely dominate for you. Love your grind, man. Inspirational. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Just like the vid, Aaron Jones, Kamara, Akers, Miles Sanders, pick 3 to start. I would go with those first 3 guys, but you have to understand, Samuel, that I have been wrong about Miles Sanders for 2 consecutive weeks, about as wrong as you possibly could be. So I'm not sure if I'm the specific person you should be asking for advice when it comes to Miles Sanders. Everyone else, though, I got you. Cole Kmet or Evan Ingram? I would lean towards Evan Ingram. Does the app cost money? Good question. Valid question. No, the app is completely free to download. You can use our Start Sit comparison tool for free, up to 25 comparisons. You get free 1 trade analyzed. And if you want our premium features, there are some premium features like access to our artificially intelligent player prop picks that are identifying exploitable player prop picks each week, 67% accuracy on those picks on over 200 picks dating back to last season. And you get access to our DFS lineup optimizer to absolutely dominate on DraftKings and FanDuel. You can start your 3-day free trial with that premium subscription if you're interested in those 2 things. Who's been here since 5? Jackson, I've been here since 5. Good to see you, man. Who are your favorite 3 wide receivers going into week 15? I mean, Devontae Adams. You can't disrespect Devontae Adams, who's very clearly the top wide receiver in the NFL at this point. I also really think DeAndre Hopkins is a top 3 option heading into next week as well. Herbert or Lamar? To me, it's obviously Lamar Jackson. You're going to see it tonight, guys. Lamar Jackson's going to go over 25 fantasy points tonight. I think that he's going to continue his path to being a league-winning cornerback. For anyone that does have Lamar Jackson is in the fantasy playoffs, because I know a lot of teams didn't make it. Did you hear Eckler's questionable for Thursday's game? Yeah, I did hear that. I'm hoping that he suits up. Apparently, Keenan Allen is also questionable for Thursday's game. Austin Hooper officially declared inactive tonight. That is good news for Harrison Bryant, a pretty good sleeper. Harrison Bryant and Hunt or Snead and Marquise Brown. I would go Harrison Bryant and Hunt over Snead and Marquise Brown. I think that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens very clearly want to run the ball. Yeah, I do think that's a solid Johnny Katz. I think that's a solid lineup heading into week 15. Deebo Samuel looking like he's out for the season. John Brown returning to practice this week. He could be back as soon as Sunday. I think they actually might play on Saturday this week. Do you think I should try to grab Hurts off free agency and play him over Tannehill? It's an interesting option, guys. Jalen Hurts, 100 rushing yards cannot be overlooked for a quarterback in fantasy football. It gives him an extremely high floor, especially against the Saints defense. Like, he has a pretty good chance to go for 100 rushing yards again, given the rushing volume that he's seeing. I do like Jalen Hurts as a fantasy option. He is a must pick up. Is Jarvis Landry a start next week over Terry McLaurin? Becoming very trustworthy. Yeah, Ronnie, let's see how he does tonight. He's gone over 20 fantasy points in back-to-back games. If he does it again this week, he's going to be in must-start category. Can you talk about Aaron Jones a little? Yeah, Noah, I can. Aaron Jones still has top 5 running back upside, but he is splitting work pretty much 50-50 with Jamal Williams, and that gives him a lower floor than we were hoping for in this fantasy season. So he has to be in your starting lineup still if you're still in the fantasy playoffs. but his floor is definitely concerning. Is Miles Sanders trustworthy? It's not the word I would use. I think Nick Chubb does have a good chance to go absolutely bananas tonight, guys. He's the most efficient running back in the NFL. I personally won't be surprised at all if he goes over 100 rushing yards again tonight. Nick Chubb averaging the most yards after contact in the NFL. He's averaging the most yards per carry in the NFL. He's averaging the most breakaway runs in the NFL, despite seeing the most stacked boxes in the NFL. I mean, he's going up against more defenders on average than any running back in the NFL, and he's performing more efficient than every running back in the NFL. Those two things together are an absolutely insane thing to think about. Like Nick Chubb, guys, defenses know they're running the ball, and they still can't stop Nick Chubb. Herbert, Tua, or Hurts rest of season. I personally would lean towards Hurts. And again, you know I like to take risks. Herbert is probably the safest option there. I definitely wouldn't be trusting Tua, especially against the Pats defense that always does well against rookie quarterbacks. But Hurts has a lot of intriguing upside and floor given his rushing volume. Alex C., how's it going, my man? J-Rob Chubb, JT Julio, Tyreek Hill. You think I'm good for next week? Yeah, Hayden, I do think you're good for next week. Best running back waiver wire options. Yes, look no further than Lynn Bowden, who you can play at running back, but he's actually probably the top receiver for the Dolphins at this point. He led them in receiving this week, and with Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant, Mike Gesicki, all dealing with injuries, it is a great sign for Lynn Bowden. He's available in 95% of fantasy leagues. I'll be adding Lynn Bowden in a few of my leagues. Congrats with A.J. Brown. That's what I'm talking about, man. Cashing in with A.J. Brown. I better see you wear his jersey on lives. Yeah, I'm buying the A.J. Brown jersey. It's on its way. A.J. Brown paid for the jersey himself. You got to respect the players who are winning you money by buying their jerseys at the minimum. We already bought a Cooper Kupp jersey this season because Walter successfully identified Cooper Kupp's prop pick 5 out of the 6 times it's identified Cooper Kupp this season. A.J. Brown, similar story. We've had 4 out of the 5 times Walter has identified A.J. Brown be successful prop picks of the week. So he's cast in for me, and I gotta give him some respect by buying his jersey. I love AJ Brown, man. Do you think Baker will go off again tonight? I mean, Baker has been absolutely cooking recently, so I do think he has a chance to continue going off. Parker, how's it going, my man? Thoughts on T.Y. Hilton? Yeah, T.Y. Hilton, there's been very few players that have done as well as T.Y. Hilton over the last month. He has really started to come on. We got a few minutes left with this stream, guys. Thoughts on McLaren? I think you still got to trust him in your starting lineups, but I feel bad for him, man. He's got horrible quarterback play. The only player in the NFL that's had to deal with worse quarterback play than Terry McLaurin is Allen Robinson. Very similar players to me. Both of them top 10 talents in the NFL. But McLaren, back-to-back bad weeks. Do you think Andrews will go over 20? I think he's got a good shot to. Again, if I'm ranking my favorite fantasy options tonight, I'm going Lamar Jackson number 1, Nick Chubb number 2, Mark Andrews comes in at number 3. After that, I think it's a fight between Baker Mayfield, Kareem Hunt, Jarvis Landry, and arguably Marquise Brown. But Marquise Brown probably last on that list. Akers, Sanders, or Dobbins, I rank them in that order, man. I would rank them in that order. Eckler has a chance that he does not play. He's dealing with yet another injury. Very concerning news for Austin Eckler. What do you think about Kyler Murray? I think Kyler Murray is starting to get healthier and healthier each week. And so I do like Kyler Murray a little bit more heading into next week. I actually think he's a pretty safe option. Chubb or Lamar at MVP on FanDuel. Lennon, you narrowed it down to the right 2 players. You got to decide between either Nick Chubb or Lamar Jackson at MVP on FanDuel and DraftKings tonight. Personally, I think you got to go with Lamar Jackson. I think he has unparalleled upside in this game. So I'm going with Lamar Jackson in all of my lineups tonight, but you're choosing between him or you're choosing between Nick Chubb. Is Chris Carson a top 10 running back? He's close. I probably have him more as a running back too, though. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, let's hit that like button. We're only 15 likes away on YouTube from 100 likes. We only got 4 minutes left in the stream, so I would love to hit that mark. If you're watching live on TikTok and you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, you got to check that out. And I don't say that. I don't think I've said this on the TikTok stream yet, but I always end my streams on TikTok 5 minutes earlier than I do on YouTube. So when the TikTok stream ends, I still haven't gotten to your question, head over to YouTube. It's a slightly less spammy chat, and I get to almost every question on YouTube in the last 5 minutes. What brand computer do you use? I actually, Johnny, this is a very on-brand thing for me. I actually built my own computer. I did that in college. I bought a bunch of different parts. Basically just watched YouTube, learning how to build my own computer. So I built my own computer. I use a Ryzen, I forget the number. I built it over 2 years ago now, but I do use a Ryzen CPU. How's your day been today, Jaden? It's been a fantastic day, man. I'm pumped to watch Lamar Jackson on primetime. This was the game I was most excited for going into this week. This game has the biggest playoff implications out of any game this season. The Ravens, if they win tonight, they're almost definitely in the playoffs. 80% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose tonight, under 33% chance for them to make the playoffs. Huge game for them. In terms of the Browns, if they win, they're in the playoffs. If they lose, still an 80% chance to make the playoffs, but it's not a lock. They got to win at least one game left in the season. I actually posted a video, Thomas, about my top 5 rookie wide receivers on TikTok. You got to go back and get that. I like Hilton over Boyd, Evan, in the flex option. Do you cover NBA on the WalterPicks app? Lennon, we got some very exciting news coming in the next couple of weeks. That's all I'll say about that, but hopefully you can read between the lines there. I don't want to announce anything, Lennon, until it's officially out. But yeah, you can expect some NBA content. Guys, that's my time. Thank you for tuning in. And again, I'll be live for the next 5 minutes on YouTube if you want to try to get your your questions answered. Then you can head over to YouTube. We're almost at 100 likes on YouTube, so you can help us get over that mark and hit that subscribe button. We passed 2,000 YouTube subscribers yesterday in under a month. Have a great Monday night, everyone. All right, I'm only live on YouTube now, as always, for the last few minutes. Do you think Andrews can get 9.3? Yes, CJ, I do. What is James Robinson's dynasty value? Matthew, it's at running back 1. I would not be selling James Robinson. I would be buying James Robinson. One of the most impressive undrafted rookie seasons of all time. Probably the best undrafted rookie season of all time. Are you high on Cam Akers? Yes, I'm very high on Cam Akers. Deontay Kupp or Corey Davis. I'd probably rank them in that order. Do you trust Russ the next week with tough matchups? Do I grab Rivers? Yeah, you can trust Russell Wilson. Herbert or Kyler? I would lean towards Kyler. Aguilar or T. Higgins? I'd probably lean towards Aguilar. And guys, we're 3 likes away from 100. Who's going to be our 100th like? Hit that like button. Really do appreciate it. I would go Kyler over Herbert. And if I get to your question, no need to spam because there are a lot of questions here. Thoughts on Cordero Patterson? I think he's an absolute baller. I love watching Cordero Patterson. You rank these top 5 rookie wide receivers. Yeah, I do. Thomas, go back to our TikTok channel and you can see my ranked top 5 wide receivers in this rookie class. Some really good rookie wide receivers. Joey, it's not the same thing as liking. Thanks for subscribing, though. And there it is. We passed 100 likes. There's that little thumbs up button. Thanks, everyone, for getting us there. I'm going to go rapid fire for the next 120 seconds, trying to get to as many questions as I can before we all get to watch Lamar Jackson ball out on primetime television. Metcalf, Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor. Which 2 are you keeping? I'm probably keeping Metcalf and Jonathan Taylor. Honestly, Jared, there's a lot of good quarterbacks you can get for cheap. Do you think Lamar and Chubb combined for over 37? Yes, I do. Do you think... Can you please remember me if Ravens D gets less than 9 and I win? Johnny, I will remember, man. Is DeAndre Swift a must start? Yeah, he is. His ceiling's too high. And I'm playing him in every single playoff matchup next week, so I'm nervous. Baker over under 210 tonight. Probably over. Can you please? Yes, Johnny, I got you, man. Chubb, Montgomery, Robinson for the rest of the season. I'd probably rank them in that order. Lamar or Brown tonight. I'm leaning towards Lamar. Player props tonight. Greg, we do have a player prop identified, exploitable player prop using artificial intelligence and machine learning. You got to start your 3-day free trial in the WalterPicks app, Greg, to get access to that prop. It's actually a plus money prop tonight, plus 145 on this prop tonight. Some great return on value if this prop hits. We're going to cash in tonight. Very excited for it. McCaffrey return. I do think he's going to return. Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore next week against the Packers. I'd go Robbie Anderson. I benched Chris Carson before I benched Jonathan Taylor, but I'd probably start Chris Carson over Josh Jacobs. So, Cole, that answers your question. I'd go Carson and Jonathan Taylor. Jarvis or Brown tonight at flex? I would go Jarvis. Sebastian, no worries, man. Used it already. Oh, Greg, then you got to just become a premium subscriber. Greg, you're not only subscribing to the app, you're also bringing me one step closer, Greg, to doing this full time. A dream come true. So if that's enough to push you over the edge, Greg, there it is. Do you like Wayne Gallman? Yeah, I do like Wayne Gallman. He's had the best month of his entire career. If Hollywood gets 38, I lose. Yeah, you're definitely safe. All right, I got time for one more question. What's it going to be? Subscribing is absolutely worth it, guys. Been a subscriber since week 1. Joey, that's the perfect question, statement to end it off of. Joey, almost every single premium subscriber has made money, more money than they paid on subscribing. It's only $15 a month or $5 a month if you subscribe for the year. And by the way, an annual subscription, Greg, will last all the way 365 days till this time next season. So $5 a month. I think you can afford it, Greg. I hope you consider it. Have a great Monday night, everyone. I hope you enjoy Lamar Jackson balling out. We only got a few weeks of football left, so enjoy every single moment of it and enjoy your Monday night, everyone.